Welcome to this episode of AU Manufacturing Conversations, which is part of our media partnership with Hannover Messe's Industrial Transformation Australia Expo. ITA runs from July 22 to 24 at the Dome at Sydney Olympic Park. Registration is free and you can see more info in the episode guide. Now on with the show. Veena, it's nice to have you finally on AU Manufacturing Conversations. Welcome to the program, and how are you going?
Yeah, thanks, Brent. I mean, it's been a while since we chatted, so it's a great opportunity to chat about some of the things we're doing with the world of manufacturing. And of course, recycling and remanufacturing, if I can kind of bundle it all together.
Indeed. Well, there's no remanufacturing without manufacturing, so it's all part of the same thing, I think, in some ways. We know each other a little, but the audience might be less familiar with you and your life and times. Could you please just briefly introduce yourself, your career, and what you're working on at the moment? What keeps you busy?
Yeah, so I'm Professor Veena Sahajwalla, University of New South Wales, Director of Smart Centre, that's Sustainable Materials Research and Technology, and also in my role, leading a few other programs related to recycling and remanufacturing and sustainability, and, focusing on communities, translating a lot of the work we do into practical end user outcomes for our community, which I think is the exciting part of what we do. It's ultimately, whether it's industry or whether it's different communities in different parts of the country, all the way into many remote and regional communities. It's an exciting way to imagine, how much of that impact actually science and engineering can have. So we're thrilled that, a lot of the work that we do actually leads to benefits for not just for the environment, but for the community, but also ultimately circularity and circular economy.
Well, we have this happy opportunity to reconnect because we're both a part of the ITA 2025 event. Will you be talking about some of the things that you just mentioned at the event, and could you tell us about your involvement, please?
Yeah, look, I mean, most certainly, when we think about all the industry partnerships that we've developed over the years, I think it's really nice to be able to see how, many of our industry partners who were in the business of collecting waste, they'll still continue to do that, but to now take recycling and remanufacturing really to a whole new level. The kinds of things we've done, recent launch of our microfactory in Sydney, where we're taking really difficult to recycle waste plastics coming from the IT world, and the work that Renew IT is doing in this space to be able to convert that waste plastic into plastic filaments for 3D printing. And to do that, requires more than just the science and engineering. It requires passion and vision, and a fabulous bunch of people out at Renew IT who really are keen to make sure that the impact is important part of their business. And they really do feel very strongly that if delivery of science and engineering can make such a big difference for our environment, then we should be doing more of that. And I think, to me, we feel really privileged that in Australia we've got incredible businesses like that who really want to not only push the boundaries in terms of, what we can do in manufacturing, but also equally importantly, think about recycling as going beyond recycling. And really, for us, that's the important question. If we limit ourselves and say, well, hey, this thing can't be recycled, it's too hard, and let's forget about it, the world will be inundated with waste materials. But what we are saying is there should be no such thing as waste. That means if we have to develop new technologies, and microfactories is one example of that, then we do need to take it beyond the traditional way of thinking about recycling. And the traditional way of thinking is normally, I take a plastic water bottle, convert that into another PET water bottle, that typical like-for-like conversion. And that's a good outcome. Of course, we should be doing that. But when materials get, more complex, you can't always assume that conventional solutions and conventional manufacturing will always apply. And I think, to me, that's really the bit that I get excited about, because I know that to be able to solve these complex challenges, we have to challenge ourselves and go beyond the norm. So we can't just assume, well, we've already put this particular problematic material in a too hard basket and there's nothing that can be done about it. That's not good enough. And I think to me, what I love about living and working in Australia and collaborating with incredible Australian businesses is they're as passionate, they're as excited about creating impact and making a difference. And if the world of IT waste and difficult plastics was a good example with our industry partner Renew IT, the fact that we've launched the filaments, micro factory in Lane Cove here in Sydney a few months ago is a great example of the fact that you need to collaborate and work together with industry to make a difference. And I think that's getting attention, of course, from not just people in Australia, but the fact that people are standing up and taking notice in other parts of the world as well. I think to me, it's something that, we really need to be proud of as Australians, that we can be small in the size of the population and the capacity, but I think we can most certainly have a big impact. The intellectual capability and the capacity that we have, I think is something shouldn't be underestimated. Because when you can find people in the world who are also as passionate about protecting the environment and caring for planet and for people, we really want to share those goals and shared values to be able to improve the state of our planet, not just assume that all this waste plastic, for example, or waste textiles, all of these materials are just simply going to sit around and there's nothing we can do about it and we just give up. I don't think that is the Aussie way of doing things. I think to me, where Australians are so good at is, we're able to collaborate, work together, we're able to give it a go. And I think to me, some of the small businesses I work with, I gave you an example of Renew IT, and we've got, those that are doing textile recycling and those that are doing making aluminium here in New South Wales, and the dreams of using more and more difficult materials where aluminium is multi-layered, for instance. Now, how do you deal with that? Yes, it's high quality aluminium, but the fact that it's multi-layered means you've got to actually have technologies, which is where our microfactory comes in with James Strong Packaging, great example of a company located out of Taree we're collaborating with, where we're saying, if we're going to have end-of-life products, which are multi-layered, we need to be able to have really clever ways in which we think about basically recovery of those materials in a way that allows us to maintain quality. And that's really the critical thing. When people talk about recycling, and people talk about manufacturing and remanufacturing, I think to me the challenge always is that ability to show that quality of whatever those recycled materials are is as good and it is fit for purpose. I think to me, that's really the ultimate icing on the cake. Not accepting the fact that just because something's recycled or made from waste, it must be downcycled. No, in fact, we need to be able to say we can make, whether it is the plastic filaments example I gave earlier, or indeed things like important metals like aluminium. They might come in really complex forms, but why should that surprise us? When we manufacture products, we are manufacturing these products for a certain purpose and an application. So the fact that you might have aluminium with a layer on the top where information of the product is actually provided, why should that surprise us? So we expect so much from our manufacturers. We expect a lot from the making part of our products. To me, that's the science of making. But what we are really challenging ourselves is to say, what about the science of unmaking? And if it's the science of unmaking and then remaking, and if that cycle were to continue over and over again, where different kinds of materials are diverted away from landfill and they're used for remanufacturing, then to me, really what we are saying is we really shouldn't be calling anything as a waste. End-of-life products are literally just products waiting to be remade into something else. And I think to me, that's the exciting new frontier, because let's face it, the world has got limited resources and materials have cost us energy to make them in the first place. And so end-of-life materials really should be seen as valuable resources and a brand new opportunity to create new jobs and be at the frontier of doing new science and technology. And I think to me, that's what I love about Australian manufacturing and remanufacturing.
We only had a short window of time in which to catch up, and I think that about speaks for it. So, Veena, it's been wonderful to hear your thoughts, and thanks very much for being on the program, and I look forward to catching up with you at Industrial Transformation Australia next month.
I look forward to it. Thanks very much for having me on the program, Brent.